the only way to start your day.
Have you in the room. Thank you so much. So let's get into it. First of all, Janice is going to share today's proverb. He'll tell you what to do with it.
Our proverb comes from Gabon, from a French colony, rich in resources, including fuel. They are also considered to be a country that is the lung of the world because of the Congo Basin that and the forest cover that they do have. But the proverb this morning: a canoe does not know who is king. A canoe does not know who is king. How would you interpret it, Alionya?
What is the spelling of the canoe?
Canoe. Canoe, row your boat, canoe.
I think I would, from how I've had it on the face value, I think I would say many a times we never know the importance of someone until they have left. That is when you realize, oh, that person was the king. I think that's what I would say. I think for me, that would be Baba Raila. So people probably are going to feel his impact, his absence after the 2027 election. They will now realize he was king.
All right. Mugure, how would you interpret it?
I think from a Mwananchi perspective, I would say it doesn't matter who's at the top. The canoe just wants to move. It wants to get to the other end of where it's sailing to. So as Kenyans, it doesn't matter who is president, for as long as the constitution and the rule of law is followed, for as long as our basic needs, according to Article 43, are met, for as long as we are going to hospital, we just need a moving country. So the canoe does not need to know who is king. As Kenyans, our main focus is not who is in power, but what is the benefit of that power to us.
Well said, well broken down.
Indeed.
I love the fact that you've brought it home, both of you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks, ladies. Intermission. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you, Wanda. The English did not come by canoe. Okay.
The says play on.
Play on.
Play on.
Okay, so we started off Monday by not going anywhere. Except for folks who had to get where they went. It was at a standstill. We woke up Tuesday morning, still the same thing. And let's just take a wrap from where we are right now, from both of you. Let's start off with that there was an opportunity for people to voice their concerns about certain things. The opportunity was dressed up as pain at the pump. It was dressed up as high fuel prices, but the opportunity, when you look at it bare frame, was that people had another opportunity to say, we are not satisfied with a particular thing. How do you think that played out, Rosalind?
First, let me appreciate the Matatu sector for coming out clearly to speak and say that they were against the increment in fuel prices because they were considering the Kenyan Mwananchi. But the question that I've been asking myself all this while is, during the December holidays, who do the Matatu industry consult when they hike the fuel double? So in December this year, I will be alert as a Leonia, and I will be going around asking them. Because if they stood like the way they stood for us this time round, probably when schools close, we'll not be seeing Matatus hiking fuel double just because the schools are closed.
Hiking fare.
Yes, hiking fares. Largely just because the learners have closed school. Nonetheless, we appreciate them because it is out of their... I would call it silent demonstration, because for them they were demonstrating by not ensuring that their vehicles are not on the road. So now deliberations were made. I think it was on a Tuesday. People sat and they said we'll reduce, diesel by 10 shillings. So, and they have said they're giving the government 7 days or 1 week to consult further so that the prices go down further. So to me, I look at it positively, but I want to, there's a time I was on TV and I was telling people our fuel is even higher because of very many vehicles. in Kenya compared to Uganda, because that is the country people are using. But if you look at the statistics of Uganda, I was looking at it this morning as I was coming here. From February, their petrol was going at 175, their diesel was at 166, while we are cognizant of the fact that they are still consuming a fuel that they bought around March. That fuel is now going in May at 189. So this fuel has gone up with 10 shillings. By the time they are consuming...
In Uganda, this is Uganda.
Yes. By the time they are consuming fuel with the prices that are being bought in May and even April, we don't know how far that price will go. So we must acknowledge that, yes, there's fuel hikes across the world because of whatever we are witnessing in Iran and US war that has affected where the oil, 20% of the oil passes, yeah. But we have seen people politicizing it and saying, you can't blame the Strait of Hormuz. But if you look at the countries where we get our oil, Saudi Arabia, the Abu Dhabi, the Oman, all of them, they have to pass through the Strait of Hormuz for it to get to Indian Ocean, for it to get to us. So we must acknowledge, nonetheless, if there's, I would call it a challenge I saw during the Monday strike, is people didn't get to work. Those who had emergencies, those who were sick, they couldn't get to hospital. So it is up to the government to come up with, if we can have, I don't know how to call it, government buses, so that they come in handy in such times, even if it is just ferrying people for free. Because people had to get to work for emergency work. People had to, there's someone who was giving birth that day. You can just imagine whatever they had to go through. So in times of crisis like those, now we should see government vehicles trying to help people, even if it is free of charge. Another challenge,
let me ask you, please, kindly, because you said something that is very important. The fuel price in Uganda has gone up by 10 shillings from March.
Yes.
What's the difference between our prices from March to now? The Kenyan prices.
The Kenyan prices is around 40.
Around
is it 40? Let me just confirm.
And are we still, the fuel we are consuming today, when did we purchase it?
I think according to EPRA, they're saying that fuel came 30 days. 30 days. That's why they review the 30 days. But another recommendation I would give to EPRA is that they need...
Before we recommend, Uganda is a landlocked, locked country.
Yes.
They get their fuel through us.
Yes.
But their fuel is cheaper. Okay.
So they've gotten their fuel through us, but they're still purchasing. They're using their fuel they bought in March. So probably they're using the prices of March.
So you're saying that it's possible that it'll be more expensive as they go ahead?
Exactly. If you look at Ethiopia right now, kerosene is going at 330. Ethiopia kerosene 1 month ago was 150. So if you look at that dynamic, there's a lot of things that play. There's a time I was telling people, we have very many vehicles compared to Uganda, and they were joking. Let me give you the data.
And that makes the fuel, that justifies the fuel price hiking?
Now, let me give you the figures. Now, assuming you are a seller of fuel, and you have two countries to pick where you're going to sell your fuel. In Kenya, we consume 16 million liters of both kerosene, diesel, and petrol, while Uganda, that is per day, while Uganda consumes 7 million.
Courtesy of the vehicles.
Yes.
And how about the industry?
And then the reasons they are giving for the high consumption of fuel in Kenya, of course, Siongamia consume that fuel. It is vehicles, it is machines, etc. So when I was telling people that Uganda, their prices might be cheaper compared to us, that is one of the facts, because they are saying we are consuming more because we have higher vehicles, we are consuming more because of a larger number of industries.
The number of vehicles, I just want to correct something here so that we don't get on the wrong footing. The number of vehicles or the avenues for consumption of fuel is not a determinant factor of the price.
It is a determinant factor.
Not in this case.
And let me give you another factor. Uganda does not price their fuel like we do. You see, for us, it is the government through EPRA that is deciding how much you'll sell. For them, they let the oil companies themselves compete amongst themselves. So the companies will always put their prices a bit lower.
Let's debate from this premise. Just hold on. Let's debate from this premise so that we make sure that we're doing so in fact. That the landed cost of fuel in Kenya is 117 shillings.
Yes.
Every other shilling that then determines the price is taxes and levies.
I agree.
In the case that we are speaking of right now, in order for us to compare apples and oranges, which is very difficult to do, a determinant factor for the price that is at the pump is not the number of vehicles on the road.
I will tell you why.
Okay.
I will tell
So
you why it
let's-
is a factor in just 30 seconds, so that I also allow my sister. If we are having people consume 16 million, while the other country is consuming 7 million, if you are a supplier, that means the demand of fuel in Kenya is higher than the demand of fuel in Uganda. I was in Uganda for 1 week for a training. Traveling from Kampala to Jinja, we took 5 hours, 2 hours of traveling, 3 hours on traffic. So for them, their matatu is actually boda boda. It is not even the vehicles.
I need
but
to-
for us here, we
I
are
think-
consuming. You might not agree, but
No,
if you
it's
look
not-
at the
no,
not
factors
about
that
agreeing.
they are
Sorry,
given there.
I need us to be. This is the thing.
Of course, but let me just land my point.
Okay.
If you're going to compare the prices of fuel with Kenya and Uganda, because that is what the people in opposition are talking about, you need to bear in mind that we have a higher economy, that we are consuming more fuel than them, and the pricing is always about the demand. And
Okay,
Thank
so
you.
but
Just a
I
quick-
need to
a quick
say this
question.
because it's very
When you-
important for us to say. When we look at global determinants of price,
Yeah.
right now there are 3 countries on the globe for whose fuel prices is determined by the number of people they have as per their population. Those 3 countries are India, China, and Thailand. The world trade-off takes those countries into consideration, and the prices that they give them are predetermined, negotiated prices. They are able to do that because of the number of people they have, so that they can negotiate based on their populations. Now, let us debate from that point of view. That when you go and you say we are buying fuel, depending on the oil cartels and those who sell, you don't go and say Kenya has more people, so can we have a lower price? It doesn't work like that. That's not how it works. So this is globally, and that's how it happens on Earth.
But
All
that's
right,
a
Sophie,
factor also that people
Sophie,
need to consider.
let's take it in from you. We're looking at a political situation that has arisen from fuel prices that have gone higher, and there's some political undertones that come into play. How did you assess the situation coming in from this week?
Thank you again for having me. I would like to first of all say that it is sad that our country runs on fuel, and we have a regime that is particularly not interested in considering the fact that the economy of this nation runs on that. And that is why they were comfortable allowing 2 days of total shutdown, courtesy of lack of movement for Kenyans. And what I interpret this as, in comparison to Alionia, is fuel, like you have said, is determined by taxes and the state of our infrastructure. And the levies that are placed on our fuel are quite high, because when this government came into office, there was a fuel subsidy program which they conveniently eliminated, and they also conveniently rose the road maintenance levy from 18 shillings to 25 shillings, which is a rise of 7 shillings. Then they went ahead to securitize the 7 shillings to pay pending bills. They took a loan of 175 billion on the 7 shillings, and they use it to pay pending bills to contractors on the road, and they go again to conform to IMF rules that say that there has to be VAT on fuel, which rose from 8 shillings to 8% to 16%. So if you take these factors into consideration, you have the people telling the government that we really cannot afford a raise of 46 shillings on diesel, because diesel is practically what affects our factors of production. Goods are transported, labor is transported, so and manufacturers actually depend on diesel for this. So what is the consequence of this? It is a rise in the cost of living to the common Mwananchi. So the way I'm looking at it is this government is between a rock and a hard place, because it's either they please the people and they let down the puppet masters, or they please their puppet masters and they anger the people. And at this point, the government has chosen to please their puppet masters by raising the cost of fuel. And the president said that we shall have 3 months of relief when he brought down the 16% to the 8%. And then mid this month, we hear a hike of 46 shillings. There is also a factor to consider that the International Energy Agency has flagged down Kenya as one of the countries that is doing the least to conserve their fuel and their energy. We have countries like Tanzania who are telling their government employees that they will now have to carpool using a bus to go to work. We have countries like Mozambique and Senegal that are giving people work from home and school, reduced school going schedules for the children so as to reduce the amount of fuel that they're using. But in Kenya, we have a deputy president who is using 8 million on flights on a daily basis, and he comes out and tells us bei ya mafuta haiwezi shuka. We have a president who is traveling on a private jet. We have a CS of Interior who's coming to tell us that fuel prices and the anger in the people is courtesy of tribalism, and the fact that a Kalenjin president is in office and the next day he flies in a chopper. So we are really not taking any measures to conserve the little fuel that we have. As a matter of fact, we are using more.
I mean, Alioja, I want to look at the issue that you brought up with regard to how we consume our fuel. Granted, Kenya could have a lot of more vehicles. But if you go back to basics of law that govern the setting of price in the country, it is all enshrined in the law. And you look at different levies that have been put down there, and you have VAT, you have excess duty, you have a road maintenance levy, petroleum development levy, a radio development levy, petroleum regulatory levy. Everything else has a price tag and a percentage that end up in determining the cost of fuel in Kenya. You compare that with Uganda, and all we see that is there in Uganda is they have around 4 levies pretty much that go into that. So our fuel in Kenya is not expensive because we have more vehicles. No. Our fuel is expensive because of the levies that the government has put in there that has resulted to high fuel prices. Where one now asks the question, if that is the position, then is government knowing that it is because of its decision that Kenyans are suffering today, and are they even listening?
Thank you. I acknowledge your perspective that our taxes they actually accumulate to around 70 shillings plus on top of now the landing costs. That we have to agree. But look at one of the levies, the road maintenance levy that we add on top of the fuel price. In Uganda, there are no even roads to maintain in the first place. And I'm speaking because I'm speaking because I have been there. So we have to look at these taxes and look at which taxes can we forego for the next 3 months, because we don't know when will this war end. Yeah. So a better argument from the opposition, I would presume, is when they tell us kindly, like from the VAT, if it is at 8%, can we go down to 4%? From the other, the I don't know, import declaration, whatever, can we forgo them for like 4 months until when this war will end? That's a better discussion. But if you look at those levies and the levies in Uganda, and I'm speaking because I've been in Uganda, mahali ambapo, a distance from like here Nairobi to Nakuru, they use motorcycles like now the Matatus we use in Kenya. We can't compare those two countries, for heaven's sake.
So we shouldn't compare them then.
we actually shouldn't compare them, because when you are saying that fuel is cheaper there and why is it expensive to us, now you ask yourself, how many industries are there? How many machines are they using, or are they using in their industries to even consume the diesel and the petrol? How many vehicles? This is a discussion you don't want to agree, but I'm speaking as an economist who has sat in class. The demand and supply curve affects the pricing of anything. Right now, the demands of Arsenal jerseys is high. I mean, the pricing of personal justice will be more expensive than
how
Manu.
does-
But you can let that land. The greatest recommendation I'll give the government, and I know they're going to make a press, I think, at around 8. So we are hoping that by 8, the Matatus will now say it is not 7, because 7 days, it's a panic to parents, because next week, people have to go to school, people have to do exams, like the universities had to postpone their exams. So I am hoping that at 8, the president and the people in the Matatu sector will now come and say, probably we have lowered the prices further and the strike is no longer on. People will now go their duties.
Are Kenyans
normally.
blind to President William Ruto's statement while Deputy President, when he stood on a podium and told Kenyans, the reason why fuel is expensive in the country is because of the taxes. At that time, he was objecting President.
He actually said that
he
there are
said that.
cartels at the
There are
Ministry
cartels
of
at the
Energy.
ministry. It is him who said, all we need to do is to remove all these taxes and make fuel cheaper for Kenyans. He said that. Are Kenyans blind to that?
Kenyans are not blind to it.
So we agree that fuel is expensive because of taxes then?
Exactly. And that's why I've said we need to look at the taxes you have mentioned and ask ourselves, which ones can we forgo for the next 3 months, for the next 4 months, as we await and pray that the war will come to an end. But it is unfortunate we have an opposition that says, no, the Iran war, we cannot blame it on fuel. So they're using the same tactics that William Samoei Ruto was using that time when we were selling Baba. And when Baba was telling people, fuel is high because of this and that, because of the Iran war. When Uhuru was coming and telling people, me, I'm not in Ukraine, I'm not the person responsible. That time, blame has shifted to the others. But now, as someone who did not vote for President William Ruto, I will now ask him to be objective enough to ensure they offer relief. Let me give you an example of what Singapore has done. Do you know Singapore has not lowered their fuel prices? They have said lowering fuel prices is actually salvaging the rich people. Because in Kenya, someone like Onyango Tate, someone like Rapudo, someone like Jimmy Wanjigi, they don't even know how much fuel per liter, because for them they fuel their Bentleys at full tanks. Yeah? But what Singapore has done is that it has given relief to taxi drivers, it has given relief to school buses, it has given relief to public transport. So there's a mechanism they're working in to ensure that you are probably not paying the same prices. If you come, because they're saying if you are relieving even the rich and the poor, we are actually favoring the rich, while we are, mismanaging the young
allow me
people.
to ask.
So countries have taken different measures, and I hope our country will take a measure
Right,
by 8 a.m.
Okay, and allow me to ask
Yeah.
whether in Singapore they run a private public transport system.
There is.
Yes, they do.
There are buses.
Are they private or
And then
publicly run by the government?
But we also have the taxis. We have the
No,
government.
I'm talking about the
bus.
public system.
Yes.
The mass public system in Singapore, according to you, is it run by government or privately, like the Matatus we have in Kenya?
It's a combination.
It's a combination.
But-
so in Kenya, we don't have that. The other question I would like to ask you, from the
But you
economics...
can have it.
But we don't.
We don't.
But we
We
need to
don't.
have it.
That's why we cannot subsidize. That's why we cannot...
We need to have it.
But we don't have it as of now.
And let me-
The other
you have-
question...
Let him
Just a minute.
Aliona,
Let me
what we're
land,
going
let me
hold
land.
on. What we're
As
going
you-
to
He has
do?
mentioned the subsidy.
What we are
In
going.
1 minute.
Excuse me. What we are going to do is allow him to ask the question, and then you can answer it,
Yes.
so that we can have.
You cited
A constructed
economics,
conversation.
which is a good thing because this is an economic conversation. How do you justify that we have securitization already on one of the levies in the fuel pricing that makes it impossible for us to lower the fuel, the pump price today? Because that securitization has been used to secure loans that if we dare to take it off the costing of the fuel, we'll be defaulting on the loans that are definitely ODS as of today. How do you justify that? That the Kenyans are in pain because of loans that have been taken, and one of the guarantees we offered was securitization based on the consumption of fuel. Now that we have a crisis, we cannot lower the prices. How do you explain that, economically speaking?
We can't say that we cannot lower. I believe the government will do something. You had mentioned something before I respond to your question about subsidy. People need to remember that during Uhuru's time when there was subsidies, you will go to petrol station and you will not find fuel.
That's not
We
true.
also need to understand that one of the problems we have is even the suppliers of fuel themselves. Because even when the fuel was going at 190, there are some petrols that were hoarding fuel, expecting that when the prices will be adjusted on 14th, they will sell it at a higher prices. So the concern of subsidy is something that we need to discuss objectively, where even the suppliers will have the Kenya's heart and say, if we will be subsidizing, and I believe that would be the last resort, if we'll be going into subsidizing, they will offer us fuel at the agreed price. They will not hoard it expecting that the prices will go up. Now, on your question on the securitization, I believe that is not the only tax. Yeah, we can look at the other taxes that we can do without. And I believe
such
that
as from the economics, because you said, and I like what you said, that you understand the economics. You spoke about demand and supply.
Yes.
You spoke about market controls.
Yes.
So what can we deal with?
Now, for the securitization, I don't think you have to blame this government only, because we have been taking loans. All the other governments that have been placed have been taking loans, and they have securitized it for us to pay those loans. There's the concern of the odious debt that you have talked about. That is, in fact, I would wish that the 2027 ballot question be about the public debt. We need to audit some of these debts. If we get whether they were taken through this regime or the previous regimes, that debts were taken, but they didn't serve the purpose to which they were taken, then those debts should not be paid. But now I'm asking you, apart from that levy that is being, cut to ensure that the securitization that you're talking about, which other levy can we actually do without?
That's what you're supposed to suggest.
Yes,
That's what I'm asking.
And that's
from where
why
you stand.
I've said economists will now sit down and say, because for securitization you can say, okay, look, we need to pay debts, so we can allow this to go on. But we have the road maintenance levy, we have the import declaration, whatever we have, and many, many more. Now we ask ourselves, can we do without this? But for the securitization, I believe we need to pay loans. This country was amongst the few countries that were written as countries who might have defaulted as of 2022. So any intervention that the government is doing to ensure that we don't default on our debts is something we should welcome. But the concern you are raising about odious debt is a concern we need to be having as a country. And both parliament should be held liable because they were not there to speak for us and say we don't need this loan because it is not going to serve, or this loan came and it didn't serve the development purpose it was supposed to serve.
Sophie, when we look at taxes and what they're supposed to do actually is that when the government collects taxes, in order for the lights to be on, literally, and the water to be running, that's why you collect taxes. If you're going to develop, you don't develop from taxation. That's clear across economies. Can we say that you can see, let's just take the taxes and levies that are on fuel, whether you want to talk about road development levy, you want to talk about all of these other things. Do you see the applicability of these taxes on keeping the lights on and the water running?
Absolutely no, because the taxes in this country are technically, if you check, there is a budget making process that is going on right now. And if you check...
Oh, that's already done. By the time the finance bill has come out, the process is done.
Exactly.
Right.
And if you check what money is going to do, it is going into paying debt. The consolidated fund, the money that is there is going into payment of debt. It is going into payment of our overhead expenditures, which is salaries and China Mandazi. It's going to funding counties. It is not actually the amount of money that is left to fund the basic need of the common mwananchi is very little. If we check, contrary to what Alionya is saying, Alionya has a first class in Kiswahili and Siari. She does not... she cannot answer your question.
Can I respond to that?
No.
I didn't talk when you were talking.
You'll have your
cannot
time.
answer
You'll have your
your
time.
economic question
You'll have your time.
because she has no knowledge of the economic scenarios in our country. On the road maintenance levy, the work of that is to maintain the road networks of our country. But even if you go into the city of Nairobi today, the number of potholes exceed the number of, like, venye barabara inaka, it's more of a pothole than the road. So when they took this securitization on this on this levy, it was for paying pending bills to contractors, not to do what actually they're supposed to do and not to pay any loan. I've heard you say there's also the railway development levy on that. If you check what the government wants to do with that levy, they want to securitize 96 shillings out of the 100 shillings in order to go and build the SGR that is supposed to move from, I think, Kisumu to Malaba or Naivasha to Malaba, something. So they are cognizant of the fact that they are short of money to do any form of development. So they need to borrow on a certain the levy is continuous. Tunanunua mafuta all the time. So wanajua, what they're actually doing is taking a loan on future payments on this fuel. If you check the situation that we are in, let's go back to where this started. Immediately, there was the Strait of Hormuz closure. You could see the government all of a sudden coming out to say, I will quote Mbadi in verbatim, saying that he predicts that this fuel crisis will be almost similar to the COVID-19 crisis that affected us in this country. And true to his words, less than 2 months later, we are exactly where it's at. It is not surprising that immediately the Kenya Pipeline Company was privatized. It is immediately when we have these problems. It is not surprising that it is known that EPRA does not determine fuel prices in Kenya using the algorithm or using AI. It is mtu amekaa hapo akadecide tunaweza shukisha 10 bob tupandishe ingine na 38 bob tuone kama tunaweza balance hii math. But if you check what they did, the cumulative amount of money that fuel was costing before this 10 shilling and 38 shilling difference was 607. Now the total cost of all our fuel products is 637. So in short, what the government has done, it has still increased its profit margin on every single liter that is being sold, whether on petrol, on diesel, or on kerosene. Look at the number of Starbucks petrol stations that are coming up all over this country. I will give you the homework to go and check who owns Starbucks in this country. Check which companies are inside the G2G deal in this country. Then you will be able to understand who exactly is benefiting from this crisis. The 3 gentlemen who were caught during the Easter time in this scandal with 500 million shillings in their houses, what happened? They were given ni bail ama ni bond, and now they're scot-free. And they orchestrated the biggest scandal. We lost 12 billion, and now we are losing more. The person who is ending up suffering is the Kenyan Mwananchi. And the sad part is, Kenya is such a hegemony in the East African community. We are supposed to be the country that holds the region together. We have everything that we need for Kenyans to thrive. But we have a corrupt government that is losing 3 billion a day. And if you accumulate the amount of money that is lost in a year, it comes to around 1 trillion. She has spoken about odious debt. We are meant to borrow 1.1 trillion in this financial year. But we are losing 1 trillion to corruption. It does not take an economist to understand that if you close the loopholes of corruption, then we will not need to borrow. Look at we are going to borrow 1 trillion domestically. Who is meant to benefit from that domestic borrowing? Who are the owners of banks in this country? The orchestrators of the same cartels that were spoken about in the previous regime, this current regime. The president now owns a bank in this country. Syrian Bank, he is the owner of that bank. If we are going to borrow 1 trillion domestically, of course, Syrian Bank is going to contribute to that 1 trillion. So he is going to benefit from the interest. If you check the amount of money we are going to pay to debt, 2.5 trillion. Out of it, 1 trillion is the principal, 1.5 trillion is interest. So if we are paying 1.5 trillion to interest, of which most is going to domestic creditors, who is set to benefit, the same people who are in power telling us that they are the change that we need, they are the people who know that the president has the audacity to tell us that the president of Ethiopia came to him to ask for economic advice. Yet fuel, contrary to what she has said, petrol and diesel in Ethiopia is the cheapest in the region. Electricity in Ethiopia is costing less than 1 Kenya shillings today.
So
the only thing that we match
per unit is what we're talking
per unit.
Yeah.
That is what we're saying. The cost of electricity in Kenya per unit is close to 20-something shillings. So if Ethiopia was stable, they did not have war. They did not have the internal conflicts that they're facing. They would be way ahead of us because the people in Ethiopia have been shielded in terms of cost of production. But our budget for defense in Kenya is the same as the budget for defense in Ethiopia, yet Kenya is not at war.
All right. Now,
explain.
As young people, as the youth, because, this is a youth perspective session today. And it's interesting how you have very divergent opinions around the same, issue we're talking about today.
When your mouth is full, of course you cannot understand what the common Mwananchi is going through.
Well, the reality is, all this fuel hiking is affecting the cost of living, regardless of the political divide anybody assumes.
True.
When bus fare hikes go up, everybody has to tow. They have to pay. When cost of production goes up, that cost has to be passed on to the consumer. So, as a youth today, people may enjoy assuming certain political positions, advancing certain, agendas. But you have to go down to the nitty-gritties and ask yourself, today we are guided by a constitution that says the government that we, the people, form ought to protect the interest of Kenyans.
Yes.
From where you stand, Rosaline, do you feel that this government is clearly securing and protecting the interest of Kenyans? Ordinary Kenyans who pay the taxes, who toil to make sure they have food on the table, who have to make sure that kids are getting to school on time, in time, and who have to make sure that the country is still running. Do you feel the interest of Kenyans are being well catered for by this government that is supposed to regulate? Because whenever you have a disaster found is easily and quickly found. Whenever we have drought, we see disbursement of food and other resources to try and save lives. The worst economic crime we can commit is to make the cost of living so unbearable that people start now reducing on the basics that they do need to survive. And I think that is where we are. What is your opinion?
Before I respond to that, this young girl has just looked at me and told me that I have a first class.
I can bet I'm way older than you.
In CRE
right.
and
let's keep it kosher.
In CRE and Kiswahili.
Do you?
My first class honors degree is something should I not having, but I have a first class honors in geography and business. The business units I did accounting. I accounted for liabilities. I accounted for assets.
Okay.
The economics that I did macroeconomics and microeconomics. I did geography. And in geography, there is a town we study, Thika Town, where she comes from. And I want to highlight to you 3 projects in Thika Town.
I need you to, because of time,
I know she can't get away with something.
But because this is a conversation.
Yes, in 1 minute.
No, we don't have that. I would like you to look at the issue that has been raised, because we can understand the project that you did in Thika and how that can explain your expertise. We get it. But let's focus on the issue, please.
So, Thika Superhighway was built with 32 billion, funded by loans and taxpayers' money. We had a housing project called Makongeni Housing Board. For the Thika Superhighway, this is in 2012. It was finished in 2012. Makongeni Housing Project in 1970, funded by taxpayer money, 50 million by that time. We did Thika Bypass in 2021, 1.8 billion, to reduce traffic and very many other things. And I want to tell Sophie here, because she's the largest person to say Ruto must go. Even us, we want projects to be taken to our region. Their town, Thika Town, has grown because of the road networks that are there. And if this government will do anything to ensure that we also have roads that will reduce the traffic we have around Rironi, we appreciate it. If this government will do anything for us to also have SGR so that we don't only depend on the road transport, we will greatly appreciate it. We need to stop having double standards. If you look at those 3 projects, they were done when people from their community were in power. Now, my community from Bungoma, my community from Busia, my community from Kakamega, my community from Tanzania should also benefit from projects that are funded by loans taken by government and also funded by taxpayers' money. In future, my community, the Luya community, will not only only be housemates, we will also be homeowners. In future, when my community has been developed through red networks, because when there's a road somewhere, that's why Thika has grown to where it is. Bidco can go to and invest there. Del Monte can go and invest there. If we have road networks in Bungoma and Busia, you'll not see us here in Nairobi being your watchmen. Even as we will be investors of homes. We will not only be shamba boys, even as we will be owners of this land. And so I am telling her, because she's looking down upon my first class owners, something she will not have, even if she lived.
Okay, so now let's answer the question. Yeah.
Now let us go to the question of whether this government is doing anything to cushion Kenyans. That's securing the interest of Kenyan. I would say one, as someone who is witnessing the construction of the Rironi Summit, that is an interest to us.
Does that lower the cost of living? The issue is on the cost of living.
Yes, I will say to the development of SGR. Let me tell you, if Bungoma developed to where Nyeri has developed, if Busia developed to where Muranga has developed, you will not see us here. We will be in our counties because investors will be there to create jobs for us.
But Rose, look, wait,
now,
there's
there's a question of cost of living.
Hold up.
How much is the price
Hold
of
up,
unga?
hold up, hold
No,
up.
how much is the price
Let me
of
answer
unga?
you. Let me answer you.
Yes.
When you say if Bungoma develops, that's a very futuristic tense.
Exactly.
We are talking of right
Are
here
we
and
seeing
now.
intention?
No, it's not about intention. It's about action.
Now, leave that aside. I've asked you, what is the price of unga as of now?
I asked you the question about the cost of living,
And I said
and the
yes.
purpose of government is to make sure that people receive the services that they receive affordable, quality, and accessible.
Yes.
We are talking about the fuel price hiking, which definitely is going to and already is affecting the cost of living.
Exactly.
That's where we are. My question to you is, do you feel this government is responsible enough and responsive enough to the needs of the Kenyans today?
Before the Iran war, the price of a gas, something that has been controversial for me, was 800 shillings. Before the Iran war, that means the cost of unga was at 140. In the next few months, we don't know that.
So
where
what was
that
the price
will
of
get.
gas today from 800 to?
Where I refilled, they've told me they're now refilling at 1050.
So is that because, one, Kenya has a
Should
bigger
we-
population? Because if you were to go by your fuel argument,
No, should we
you
blame
say,
the government for the Iran war?
well, should we blame the fuel prices on the
doing
population of
something?
Kenyans?
Are they doing something? Yes.
No, they're
Are they
not.
going to respond? No, they're not. When the president removed the VAT from 18 to 8%, and we are hoping today that at 8, they will have done something to ensure that the Matatu sector does not go to the streets again. Is this government doing something? You must say yes. Me
No,
as
I must
someone-
not. I must not.
So what have they not done?
They are
According
doing
to you?
exactly nothing. Answer for me, Sophie.
I have, as you respond, right?
Yes.
As you respond. We've talked about taxes, and if you look at how much has been collected from all the levies that we talk about, is 338.3 billion shillings. That is the amount of taxes and levies that have been collected from fuel throughout the year. And you look at what 338 billion shillings is, that is SGR from Mombasa to Nairobi. That is the amount of taxes that we have collected from fuel. Now, we talk about road maintenance levy, a petroleum development levy, we talk about railway development levy. One asks the question, has your road been maintained? I say mine has not.
No.
Have we seen any development in the petroleum sector? Because as we talk about fuel, one says the only way to secure the people of Kenya is by either having doing what Dangote is doing or having reserves in the country that would cushion us in the years to come. Because we talk about Singapore. That's exactly what Singapore has done to a point that it is able not to transfer that burden to its people. Are we seeing value for our taxes, especially in the fuel sector?
Absolutely no. And I would like to say that this government is doing absolutely nothing to shield the Kenyan monarchy, and that is very well displayed in the finance bill of 2026. You know, last year, when IMF brought their mission to Kenya, they said that they have to suspend their agreement with us because Kenya is corrupt, because Kenya is extravagant, we spend too much money, and our debt books look bad because we have a debt of 12.8 trillion shillings where we stand today, and that is without factoring in securitization. It is without factoring in guaranteed and non-liability loans. It is without factoring in all the other Kinanyota fund that we have been given in the midst of that. So when they said that, then they gave specific recommendations as to what we should do in order to come back into a program with them, because the government is still seeking more funding from the IMF this financial year. So the IMF, amongst its recommendations, was we check our debt books, we do corruption analysis, and we convict corrupt people and try and get back our money. But the most important thing is they recommended an increase in consumption tax. What is consumption tax? It is excess duty, it is value-added tax, it is income tax. And if you check the finance bill of 2026, it is exactly what has been risen. You find rental tax on rental properties is moving from 7.5% to 10%. You find there are specific excess duties that are being placed on digital payment programs. There is duty being placed on our smartphones. So you, as a young person, you're trying to find a means of income online, but they are coming for the device that you're using to make that money. They are coming for the online platforms that you use to get that money sent to you. So what we are seeing is, right now, according to the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, 40% of Kenyans are living below the poverty line. 7 out of 10 of young people, a country with a median age of 19, are unemployed, and they have no hope of getting a job because government.
Can I interject there and ask then?
Yes.
That if we're talking about interventions to cushion people, one quick one would be intervene to lower the cost of fuel, whatever way you would need to do that. I mean, look at what countries did during COVID. With the UK said they suspended a budget for a meantime and said, okay, let's actually put money in the hands of people since they can't move. That's what in Kenya would an intervention look like to cushion people? And I'd like to hear from both of you.
It's simple. Reduce our expenditure. For instance, we are seeing the executive using 1 trillion on office supplies and expenditure. That is China Mandazi, Kalamu, Karatasi, their movement. You find the president is moving from one place to another with a very large convoy of fuel guzzling vehicles. We are seeing them, the office of the deputy president, use 8 million on choppers every single day. If we can just have a government that decides, okay, for the remainder of the time that we're in government, we will sit in our offices and work, it will be a point. If we go for those cartels in that industry, then we go and say, you will not hoard fuel, because in the midst of this, we found that there are companies that have been hoarding fuel. As a matter of fact, when the CS went to where the oil is kept in Kenya, at that time when they were saying there's a shortage, they went and found there was actually no shortage. And people in Nyeri, people in many places in Mount Kenya were going without fuel. It is for us to move away from grandiose projects like those that they are mentioning here. Like the president yesterday said that they will take a project that will cost billions to the coast, instead of focusing on developmental projects because you haven't developed for the past 4 years. Then spend this time trying to cushion Kenyans. Put fuel subsidies. It's not rocket science.
Okay.
And what we are saying as a generation is we are here for economic liberation, economic renaissance. So our conversations and our solutions and our fight is on economic liberation to especially the young people. And not the young people alone, because our parents are suffering. With a daily limit of 2,000 kwasha and you have cancer. The current budget right now has reduced the budget of chronic illnesses from 10 billion to 4 billion, a reduction of 6 billion. What is that telling you about the priorities of this government? But we are increasing the budget for defense with 50 billion. So what we're trying to say is their priorities are on looking for online people, those who are criticizing the government, but they can't look for the person who killed the women in Kware and the women who are being killed and the children who are disappearing today.
Our time runs out here.
Just wrong.
I hear you that. So, I mean, Rosalind, if you were to say ways in which would cushion people, because we know that what the security of the livelihoods of Kenyans is paramount constitutionally, what would you say would be two things that could be done that would actually show that this security is actually being achieved by cushioning Kenyans? What would be two things?
Thank you. You know, I'm shocked that she has mentioned some things on finance bill.
Two things, Rosin. Our time is running down. Two things
why
that
do
would...
you allow her to mention other things?
I asked the question, she answered the question. I'm asking you a question.
Did you ask her about SHA?
We're arguing now and our time is running out. I'm asking you two things that would be done. Two things that would be done to cushion.
I am answering. She has said that the rental income in the current finance bill has been increased to 10%, which is false. I was expecting as a media house, you would say that is not in the current finance bill. It has been retained at 7.5. Taxes on smartphones have been reduced from 55% to 25%. There are no taxes on money transfer. But because you're colluding, now you can't even say what is in the finance bill and what is not in the finance bill. That is very wrong. That is very wrong for a media house. The last thing, a recommendation that you're asking me, I cannot be careful. That I'm mentioning something.
You need to be factual, you know. It's not about being careful.
And I'm being factual.
No.
Rental income, percentage in income.
Take your time and I'll tell people to come to the streets.
And I've told, and she's
Get the numbers right.
She's
at
saying,
least.
All right, so what we're
People
doing
should
now...
come to the streets. We reject
can you allow
fuel
me to
prices
speak?
and
Okay.
Ruto must
Can you allow
go.
me to give
So
my
what
two
we're doing now
recommendations?
is that we had the recommendations
Now,
and now we're at 8 o'clock.
The
You see, this is the problem
needs
with time.
to do two things. He has mentioned about the taxes. So we can look at the taxes we can do without, or if we can go lower on the VAT tax. That's a good recommendation. The other thing is that EPRA needs now to be reviewing their prices in a span of maybe even 2 months, because that 1 month is too close. We are not even done yet with the Matatu strike. Date 14 will also be having another shock on how much pricing they'll be putting on fuel. Lastly, the government should come up with public transport in the Matatu industry so that in times of crisis, these industries can also cushion us. Lastly, they are saying that this government needs to stop development project. Rironi Mau Summit lazima itajengwa. SGR to Malaba lazima itajengwa. Mukitaka mujinyonge. Lakini...
All right, thank you very much. We want to say thank you, both of you, for coming into the studio this morning, Roslyn and Sophie.
Thank you.
8 o'clock. Good morning. Thank you very much.
Latest news from around the world. 94.4. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.